Hi everyone, Nadia Davis here, and welcome home. Welcome to a place that is safe and judgment-free. If you don't have that physically in your life, you can create a space within you. After a long road of trauma and addiction recovery, I was able to create a space within where I'm more aware of my mind's attack thoughts. And so here on Sunday Connection, we hold space to ban all shame, and we provide a safe space where we can work together to become more aware of our mind's attack thoughts. They separate us from our true self and from each other. Tonight, I am so excited because we have special guest, Dr. Monica. I met Dr. Monica at a women's retreat that was founded by Sally Tabib and held at 7th Chakra Yoga Institute of Spiritual Sciences, and what a healing experience that was. What struck me the most about Dr. Monica was her grace, is her grace. How can one walk through pain and the grief of a loved one with so much grace, following such depths of pain? I know she had a long journey, and so I have invited her here to talk. And as I bring her in, I wanted to mention a couple of things. Priya Jain is both of our spiritual mentors. And Priya talks about how, on her podcast, Practical Spirituality, she talks about how we can have harmony walking through pain. I have found that in my life, yet it was after 2 decades of denying, processing the grief of my father, my best friend, a child, a kid that I represented and freed, all within a short period of time. When we share our journeys, we ban shame. We ban hiding in the closet alone. We ban reaching for that drink. We ban suicidality. And so please welcome Dr. Monica as she has into becoming an amazing grief and mental health advocate.
Hi, Nadia.
Hi.
I'm good.
How
are you? Hi, everyone. Thank you for that beautiful introduction.
Hi.
I'm good.
Hi. How
so
are
good to
you?
see you, my friend.
So grief and loss are really, really hard. And whether we've had notice and we've been, able to prepare for it, or it's been sudden, sometimes we don't even know what to grieve because we've been, ripped off of experiences. And we don't even know until a moment comes and we realize, in my case, I don't have a father. I never had a father as an adult person. And I don't know what it's like to lose a spouse. Yet many out there do. And so I just want to open it up to you to share your journey, whatever you want to share. The space
Thank you.
is yours.
I think grief is a topic that's difficult for so many. I remember when I was going through the thick of my grief, which was in 2011. Let's fix this. In 2011, I suffered a very profound loss in my life. I lost my husband, and the father of my children to brain cancer. And he battled for 2 years. He was diagnosed in 2009. He passed away in 2011. And my life literally turned upside down. I guess you can call it, I hit rock bottom. And my children were babies. They were only 3 and 5. And so here I was navigating this brand new role, and I was dealing with so much more grief than just losing my spouse. It was the grief of losing my spouse, the grief of my children losing their father, but most importantly, the grief of my own self. Who was I now? Who am I without Satish? Was my husband's name. Who am I without Satish? Who am I in a society where the label widow is stickered onto my forehead? How do I navigate this? And so for a very long time, Nadia, I went through the 5 stages of grief. And I was in depression for many years, and went through all the typical traditional ways to deal with depression. So, talking about therapy, grief counseling, medication at some point in my life, and finding a way to kind of like what I call a dark tunnel when I was trying to find my way to crawl out of this dark tunnel. And it's not until 2018, so literally 7 years later, where I think I saw a little bit of light in the tunnel. Yeah.
7 years. And can you explain what the shock first did, and then if you experienced any shame from that label?
I did. I felt, so the shock probably lasted me 4 weeks because I was mentally preparing for his passing. He was in hospice for several months, so it was you can never fully prepare for someone's passing, but the shock factor was different because it wasn't a sudden death. It's not like someone who just dies on a plane crash or a sudden cardiac arrest. I had a little bit of time to deal with hospice and so forth. But the first month, you could say I was in shock because I couldn't tell what my reality was. Luckily, I had my parents to kind of swoop in and take care of the kids, so I can just lay in bed. I can lay in bed and just cry and just exist. And I think for me, the label widow definitely was shameful. I didn't know too many young women, especially Indian women, and that's a whole different perspective of widowhood, cultural aspect that was kind of thrown on me. So that was really, really hard. Right. So not only was I dealing with the loss of my identity, like who am I now, but different things changed in my life, like certain friendships changed. Like, I was no longer a +1. So I wasn't invited to things. I was addressed as, oh, hi, this is so-and-so. She's a widow. So then I kind of I took that in. Yeah. And it's not until I started working with our mutual spiritual teacher, Priya Jain, that it is a label Society has to find a way to label people, things, situations, right?
Right.
So widow's just one, divorced, single, married, they're just labels. But what I've learned
Right.
with the help of this inner spiritual work is, why am I giving power to that label? I choose to give power to that
Right.
word. I choose to give power to that label. Why am I allowing that? So this is 12 years later, Nadia, that I'm able to see that word and not let it trigger me. Yeah.
Right. And the reason that those labels are so triggering
Yeah.
is that's how our mind works. And it'll get us, caught up in that distraction from fully
Yeah.
experiencing the
Yeah.
mourning and the loss. Staying in this, detached, kind of disassociated mode, just surviving, but then we get
Yeah.
attached to the label and we can't process our pain. Did you go through that? Describe that journey when you realized that the focus was the outside, understandably, when you got to a point when it just cracked open.
I think it cracked open for me last year. I've been working with Priya very, literally monthly, and being able to say the word widow without shame was so powerful for me. I couldn't even say the word. It was like the W word. I could not say it until she's like, face it. She made me stare at the word as if it was in front of my face. And now I can say the word and not be ashamed of it, because it is my journey. It was my journey. It was my soul's journey to go through this. And
it's so sad because our mind will
it
attack
will.
ourselves.
And you go through this spiral, down, circle, where you start feeling pity and sorry for yourself. I felt sorry and pity for myself for very long, because that's how certain people around me treated me. So it was like that whatever reflection was coming on me, I kept bringing it inwards more, where I couldn't fully heal. I couldn't fully heal.
And then did your mind did it create then more shame when you were trying to heal and showing, or on the outside it looked that things were starting to get better? Was it, oh, I can't show that I'm beginning the healing process? Did you go through any of that type
I did. So
of shame?
I think for me, mine was more high functioning depression, where I looked all put together from the outside, right? Like my hair was done, my makeup was done, my nails were done, right? But in the inside, I was hurting. I was seeking something, and I didn't know what I was seeking, and I didn't know where my place in society was. So people just assumed, oh my God, she looks so put together, she must be okay. But I was in fact crying for help in the inside, wanting certain friends to reach out to me, wanting certain family members to reach out to me. Because at night, my tears, once you wash off that makeup, my tears were just flowing. And I remember having these, you call bathroom floor cries, where you're literally on the bathroom floor crying. So I think
that's when you started feeling it, really diving in, but in
that's
isolation.
When I think my depression really kicked in. And I think it was just not really understanding for a lot of people around me, how can she still be so depressed but look happy from the outside? And that's when you really understand, now that as I do work with as a mental health advocate, and really understanding what is high functioning depression, right? And that's kind of a classic example of
Very
what I went through.
interesting. That's like high survival mode. Yeah. So when did you allow for your depression and the grieving to be known by others, and the outside identity to just kind of let go of it and say, this is me, I am hurting here, and screw the shame of it, this is reality? How did you get there? And then how did that lead to becoming an advocate?
In 2018, this is literally 7 years after my husband passed away, I was asked to be a speaker on a podcast called Smashing the Stigma. And I was like, what? You want to hear about me? Like, I had never done any public speaking before. I mean, college stuff, that was it. And I was like, what do you want to talk about? And she's like, I just want to interview you. And we talked about everything. And the whole conversation, this goes back to 2018, was literally in tears. I did the entire talk in tears, but that was me letting my pain out. And it sparked something in me. I was like, oh my God, like, this feels good to talk about my story.
And others related and connected, and
at the very same time, Nadia, one of my really dear friends, Raj, reached out to me and said, Monica, there is a woman who just lost her husband. She's young like you. Her children are young like you. Can you help her? He was hesitant to ask me. He's like, I'm sorry, you can say no. That was my spark, because I literally picked up the phone to a complete stranger, and I talked to her about me. I talked about her. She was in a state of shock because her husband had died suddenly. He was young, and she wasn't talking to anybody. She wasn't taking calls from anybody, but she took my call. I've never met her. She's never met me, but I was able to connect with her at a level that no one else could. And I wanted to do that for her because I didn't have that for myself. So what I thought was what I couldn't get from people, I wanted to do that for someone else. So in 2018, I did that. And then the next thing you know, I was on this podcast episode and that podcast episode. And that's where the work began as a mental health advocate and my passion for grief.
That's beautiful, because you just shot like right through how our mind shuts down, one, and then it goes into shame from the labels, and then it just leads, our bodies feel it, and depression sets in. And when you get to that point of disassociation and disconnection, then severe depression. But human to human connection sometimes is the only way that you can even put words to what you're going through. You can't find the words. And so what a powerful experience and example. I mean, that's why, I mean, my Home is Within You has the full story of trauma and addiction recovery. And I share a lot. And what I have found is that it's shame, and it's those hidden, just the darkness that just consumes people to the point of suicidality, because they either can't put it in words, or
Yeah.
they feel ashamed for how they're feeling. And so I mean, I want to thank you for the work that you do. You know, and the example that you gave with the woman, after you did that with her, how did things unfold after that, both with you personally and your own healing, and then
I
with
think that
your
was the
advocacy work?
turning point in my life where I realized that there is power in my voice, and whoever needs to hear it, that voice will reach them. And the next thing you know, it's 2019. I did a couple different episodes, different platforms, public speaking platforms. And then the pandemic happened, right? The whole world shut down. Everyone was dealing with some form of mental health. The world was grieving. There was so much loss happening around the world with, the pandemic. So I started doing a lot more work. I started doing medical videos on mental health. Yeah.
The universe did that.
And it's literally not until like 2019 and 2020 is when I started creating just mental health content, where I talk about things from a pharmacist perspective. That is my profession. I talk a lot about mental health meds. I talk about mindfulness, different, Ayurvedic approaches to mental health. And so in 2020, in addition to doing my videos, I teamed up with the Pharmacy Podcast Network and helped create the Pharmacist Focus on Mental Health series, where I just created this series on all topics mental health. And I also began writing as a medical writer for a mental health platform, where I created a column called A Dose of Mental Health by Dr. Monica. And I talk about my own struggles in there, and I take real patient case scenarios and talk about it and just help break the stigma. Because truthfully,
by opening your heart and just talking brutally, honestly.
And I think that's, and you talk about that, like, we gotta just stop shaming. We gotta stop the shame. Ban shame.
Hashtag ban shame.
Yeah.
Everyone. Hashtag ban shame. And shaming, I mean, it's our own, we have control over our own internal awareness of our attack thoughts.
Yeah.
Fear and shame, and yet shaming, the shaming is awful. With, if a woman is grieving, wherever they might be, something in the grocery store reminds them of a lost loved one, and they start crying.
Grief. Brene Brown has this famous quote, and I use it all the time, that people try to get over grief for the sake of someone else and society. And when I dig deep into the work of grief, the way I see it is to love is to lose, right? When you love someone, you don't just stop loving them because they're no longer part of your life. So how do you stop grieving?
Right.
Grief is something that you don't get over. It's and when I talk about grief, you hold hands with it in the journey of life. You become a companion with it. You try to befriend it. And, this week I'm actually releasing a video called Grief is Like a Storm. So grief can hit you like a light rainfall one day, and then the very next day it can hit you like a thunderstorm. And that's how it is. And like you said, you can be triggered by, for me, it's like, an anniversary, or a song, or, a picture.
And isn't it also, their soul calling? Shame will prevent us, our mind will prevent us from
Yeah.
fully connecting with the soul that is around us and feeling the love of a lost one physically and
Yeah.
connecting with their
And I'm just
spirit.
seeing a lot of amazing comments on here. I just want to say thank you to everybody that's joined. I see here, I've lost my grandparents during the pandemic and I still grieve for them and love them. Yeah, you know, and
Oh,
like I said, you don't stop grieving. You don't. And nor should you have to. I think when, you know, there's this pressure that we put on ourselves that you have to stop and know.
right.
I mean, truthfully, you don't. It's something that you shouldn't be ashamed of. Even for me, 12 years later, the grief is different because I'm seeing it at a different lens now. But do I still cry?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Do I have moments where I'll shed a tear? Of course.
And when we embrace that pain, that is truly when we allow the soul
Yeah.
to experience what it's meant to experience. And it's super hard to hear
Yeah.
that when in the midst of pain. You know, Bria said we're
Yeah.
meant to experience what we're meant to experience. And if you say that to someone
Yeah.
right there in the midst of pain,
You
that, you
can't.
know,
Yeah.
you can't quite say that. But when we can help share our stories and
Yeah.
and help others feel safe to open up about their pain, then more and more of that, then somebody might be open to saying, okay, I'm going to sit back and observe this pain and sit and look down as though I'm looking on myself on this planet and this body has been taken from me. Like, what are the soul's lessons, and what is the wider experience here
Yeah.
about infinite life and my infinite true self connecting with their infinite soul, you know, and all of
Yeah.
us being in this together. And then pain can can dare I say, be a place where you can
Yeah.
have a sense of some harmony and enlightenment. And it's a
Yeah.
whole nother experience.
I completely agree with you. And just to reemphasize, when you are in that depth of that pain,
Mm-hmm.
you have to use the tools, whatever they may be for you, to help you at that moment, be it therapy, be it medication, be, be it working out, nutrition, whatever it is, right? A toolbox for your mental health. Because if you had
Picking up
if
the
someone
phone.
said,
Yeah.
hey, let's take the spirituality approach uh in 2000, I don't know, 2013, I'd be like, what are you talking about? Like, you
Right.
can't hear it.
You can't hear it.
And you know, I have to
Right.
say, about a year ago, my dear friend Dr. Bella, who is on here, had introduced me to Priya 1 year ago. I was not ready at that time because I was dealing with
Right.
hypnotherapy and I was dealing with other stuff. I can't, but
You
6 months
can't.
later, I started listening to some spiritual podcasts of Priya, and I texted our mutual friend Simi and I said, hey, I'm ready to talk to Priya. I had to be ready to take that step for the spiritual path. I
Right.
clearly wasn't ready a year ago. And that's okay. And that's the important message for everyone who is going to be listening at the replay, who's listening right now, is your journey is going to be different than mine. My journey is going to be different than yours. Don't put shame on yourself. It took me
Don't.
7 years to get to acceptance, to accept the fact what happened, that I lost my husband at a young age, that my children lost their father at a young age. It is what it is. That's a hard truth to swallow. It's hard to accept. And I, I am happy to share with, when I do this work, is take as much time as you need. There's no timetable. There's no race.
There isn't. And also choices that you make that people may view as unhealthy, again, our shame will keep us in the dark. I can't tell you how many relapses I had, how much suicidality I had, treatment, jail, hospitalizations from unaddressed grief and trauma. And sharing our stories here, and again, it bans the shame, and it just starts that little baby step of a process of putting a little bit of light in the darkness where we get it. It's just that little baby step. And however, I love that you said that, however much time that we need, and all, take it. And also do not beat yourself up for managing in the way that you might. We want you to be healthy and safe. And there are places like this and people that care.
Yeah, no, just beautifully said. And I think the most important thing is realizing that grief comes in many forms, right? It's in addition to losing a loved one, there's grief of a dream, loss of a dream, loss of, an idea, loss of your identity, a loss of finances. I mean, we saw that impact that the pandemic put on all of us, right? And I think talking about grief and talking about mental health, I mean, honestly, we don't know what happens behind closed doors in any of our homes. I'm a mom of two teenage daughters. You have a teenage son. And so, it's such a delicate time for these teens with social media and just being a teen in general. And so being able to openly talk about mental health. So when I talk about mental health with my patients, I am proud to tell them I took an antidepressant. I did for a few years. I'm glad I did because it helped me get over that hump. And was I ashamed in the beginning? Yes, I was. As a pharmacist, I was ashamed because I had this ego where I was like, do I really need to be on it? Until one day I was like, I need help. And so now when I talk to my patients about it, they're like, what? You? I'm like, yeah, me.
Oh God, there is no shame in taking medication as needed
and that's why as a pharmacist,
for some it will save their life.
A mental health advocate, I use my platform to let's educate people on how these medications work and the importance of using medication if it's part of your, therapy, in addition to the adjunct stuff, right?
Yeah, I love that you also have all the, holistic ways, and that you talked about, everyone's healing journey is different because may choose a different route. And I think that's really, really important. Really important. And, this has me thinking, my mom, has been really struggling. My mom is 87 and everything's kind of coming to the forefront in her health, And my father abruptly passed of a heart attack when they were 59. And this is an entirely different journey. And so I love the beginning of this conversation. You're helping me a lot. I've never had the opportunity that I'm having with her. People that have passed have all been abrupt in my past. So, it's so important to talk about this for those of us that have the blessing of having a parent where
Yeah.
we can help prepare them too, and each other. So this is part
Yes.
one of what I know needs to be a part
Many
10.
parts.
For sure. I want to say that. And thank you so much for sharing your story. There's so much more to share, so much more to share. And for your work speaking out about grief and mental health. You know, there always needs to be more voices. Always needs to be more voices. Anybody that's listening or that may listen to this later, please share your story. And I appreciate the guests that did here. Again, the more that we share, the more,
Absolutely.
the less shame there is, and the more light and warmth we can bring into the dark corners of those that are
I
struggling.
think, mhm.
So
I think grief
yeah,
is
go ahead.
a topic that affects everybody at some point in their life. Every single person at some point will lose a loved one or has known of a loss of a loved one. So it is a topic that
Right.
at some point everyone will have to address. And so if we can ban the shame on grief, and continue to ban the shame on the mental health impact that grief does to you, I think this collective journey of healing throughout the world, what other way can we do it without one another, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I encourage everyone to please share if they're grieving and their grief journey, and put hashtag ban shame, and look out for another reminder for another part of this. And a reminder on Friday at noon live, I have spiritual advocacy, and the guest is Priya Jain, and some of this discussion about actually how do you find harmony in pain. You know, when I first heard that, I probably would have
Yeah.
fainted or punched somebody or, you know, but today there is a way that we can, not right away. You know, we
Yeah.
need safe places to feel it all, for sure. And so I hope that this provided that to some people. And again, keep on the lookout for an announcement for another part of this. Check out Monica's page. We'll include the tags as well as any other thing
I
that
just
you
want
want to
to say thank you
announce.
so much,
Yeah.
Nadia, for inviting me to your amazing platform. It was an honor to meet you in October, and it's like this right away, we had this instant connection. And so I look forward to many more in-person spending time together, and just doing more
Yes.
collaborations together, because we want to hear more about your work as well and your book. So definitely part two, and we want to talk about the work that you do as well, because it's pretty powerful work that you do.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Together we can ban shame and begin the healing. I'm so happy to have met you, and I'm so
Yes.
happy we're
And to many more
collaborating. And
to be
continued.
continued.
Yes, to be continued.
Thank you. And
Thank you
thank you to
so
everyone who
much.
joined.
Thank you
Thank you
so
so
much.
much for taking the time out to be with
Yeah.
us tonight.
Yeah, we got a lot of people. Rajesh, we have Dr.
Yes.
Gandhi, a whole bunch. Thank you so much for supporting us. But please share your journeys. And again, collectively, we can ban shame,
Yeah.
and just start the
Powerful.
healing. So thank you
Bye.
so
Thanks,
much,
Nadia.
everybody.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.
I know you
Stay
too.
safe tonight in
Bye.
this rain.